Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Grapevine Open Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Chris, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm your host for the month of July. This is the AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. You can enjoy the Grapevine Open Meeting every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time on this virtual platform. The meeting will be recorded and will be posted as an audio podcast every Friday on all podcast platforms, on aagrapevine.org, and on YouTube. This is an open meeting. Everyone is welcome. We are glad you're all here, especially newcomers. If you are new to AA and want to learn more about our program of recovery from alcoholism, we encourage you to find an AA group in your area. Contact with group members will help you to find a sponsor and help you to learn about the AA program of recovery from alcoholism. This is today's daily quote from the Grapevine, July 22nd, 2026. When we AAs look to the future, we must always ask ourselves if the spirit which now binds us together in our common cause will always be stronger than those personal ambitions and desires which tend to drive us apart. Though the individual AA is under no human coercion, it is at almost perfect personal liberty, we have nevertheless achieved a wonderful unity on vital essentials. For example, the 12 steps of our AA program are not crammed down anybody's throat. They are not sustained by any human authority, yet we powerfully unite around them because the truth they contain has saved our lives, has opened the door to a new world. And that's from our AA co-founder, Bill W. It was in the September 1945 issue, and it also can be found in the Language of the Heart book published by Grapevine. You can receive the daily quote as a daily email by going to aagrapevine.org and signing up, or you will find it on the Grapevine app every morning. This is an excerpt from this month's Grapevine magazine. This is coming to your mailboxes this week. It's the travel issue. This is one of the shorter articles. It's titled A Full Tank. Last May, about 30 of us from Delaware, AA, drove down to Matthews, Virginia, population 535, for our friend Stephen and Meredith's wedding. 9 of us stayed in one rental, and it was so much fun. Before the wedding, we thought about hitting an AA meeting in town, but found out they only had one meeting a week. Back home in Wilmington, we are blessed with dozens of meetings a day. So we were definitely having culture shock. One of the groomsmen, Zach, had to be dropped off at the wedding, and I became the woman for the job. Along with my good friend Chase, we drove across the little tiny town and dropped off Zach. Afterwards, I decided I needed an energy drink. The gas station closest to the wedding didn't have my brand, so we drove closer to the house we were renting. When Chase and I walked into the gas station, we noticed that the woman working behind the counter had a circle necklace with a triangle in it. Chase complimented her necklace, and she said, "Oh, thank you. Today is my 13-year sober anniversary." She even showed us that she had a cake behind the counter. We couldn't believe it. a miracle before our very eyes. We knew right then what we had to do. We drove back to the house and told all of our fellow friends and my partner, who's a normie, who we just met. So we all got dressed up in our finest wedding garb and headed back to the gas station. We got in line and gave our friend with 13 years her earned anniversary hugs. There was not a dry eye leaving that gas station, especially the celebrant who was sobbing. What a beautiful reminder that we are everywhere. We are truly never alone. That's from Katie H. in Wilmington, Delaware. And we also have a reading from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is from the chapter Working with Others. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Talk about the condition of body and mind which accompany it. Keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it will serve some good purpose. But you may talk to him about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. You will soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, of the traits of the alcoholic. If his own doctor is willing to tell him he is an alcoholic, so much the better. Even though your protege may not have not entirely admitted his condition, he has become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask you that question. Tell him exactly what happened to you. Stress the spiritual feature freely. If the man be agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles. When dealing with such a person, you had better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. There is no use arousing any prejudice he may have against certain theological terms and conceptions, about which he may be already confused. Don't raise such issues, no matter what your convictions are. All right, so this will be a two-speaker meeting. There'll be no sharing by attendees, so please sit back, relax, and listen. We often hear it is best to try to identify with the speakers rather than to compare your story with theirs. Okay, so let me introduce our first speaker. Many of you are going to recognize this voice. I met Don 5 years ago, and we have worked together ever since. He is one of the 3 hosts of the AA Grapevine half-hour variety hour, and I am very, very happy to have him tell his story today. Welcome, Don.
Thanks, Chris. I'm Don. I'm an alcoholic. I got sober May 30th, 1994 in Greensboro, North Carolina. And my home group is the Way Out group, which I joined that meeting in 1996, and I've been going every Monday since that time. The home group is where I'm connected to AA, and I've always thought it does a couple of things for me. It's a way that I give back to AA. Like the other meetings I'll go to, and it's like I can listen to what the message is, and I learned something from that. But my home group, I'm responsible to make AA happen in Greensboro, and so I need to be there. It meets once a week, and I'm there every Monday unless there's illness or I'm traveling, some real reason to do it. It can't be that there's, a new episode on TV that I just really know, or there's a game, it's a really good game. I'm going to be at my home group. The other thing it does is it protects me against myself, in that I can't get away from going to a meeting once a week. I can't convince myself that I'm feeling really, I'm feeling good and I could skip meeting tonight. And no, I've got to be there every single Monday. And I think, I just need that protection because I have tried to back away from AA at different times in my sobriety and kind of cut back. I guess the joke is I want to cut back on meetings until I drink and then add one. And then I'll know how many meetings I need to go to every week. And of course, it's a terrible idea. I need to go. So my comfort level is 3 meetings a week. Let's see. I got sober. No, what was my drinking like? First thing is I blamed my family for everything. Alcoholic is you've heard that joke. What is, how many alcoholics does it take to screw in a light bulb? Only one, the alcoholic holds the light bulb stationary and the whole world revolves around him. And that was really it's like everything is about me. And my parents did the best they could with what they had. And it turns out I actually had a really, it wasn't bad. It wasn't great. There were things that were wrong, of course, but I blamed for everything. And one of the things that I've learned from going to thousands of speaker meetings now over the years and hearing other people's stories is that it has nothing to do with it. My parents have nothing to do with it. I'm an alcoholic, and I learned in AA it's a disease, and one of the features of the disease is I'm going to blame anything I can as an excuse. It's an excuse to drink. And I've heard stories of people who had the most nurturing parents imaginable, totally cared for. Everything that they needed was provided for them, and they started drinking. When they reached a certain point, alcohol took over and they couldn't quit, and it destroyed their lives. And then I've heard people who had horrific childhoods that unimaginable abandonment and pain that they went through. They drank, and alcoholism destroyed their lives at a certain point. So it wasn't the upbringing, it's the alcoholism. It's the fact that when I drink, it takes over. And when I started drinking kind of late, 17 years old, I didn't start drinking until I left my parents' house. I was it was unspoken, no, you can't drink. And I just didn't do it. I was really good. I was really a good boy. I was really quiet. And when I got out of the house, I started drinking, and whoa, it opened up everything. I was no longer a quiet, retiring person. I became a very loud, effusive person. My personality grew by leaps and bounds when I drank. I think I would take a drink, and it's like a potion in a video game. It would level me up. All of a sudden I get drunk, and I got like +5 charisma in my mind and a +5 wit. So it did everything I needed, and I loved it. It was the solution to everything, and it opened up my creativity. But there were a few places where problems began to develop. One point, my girlfriend said, I said, 3:00, let's go get some beers, and we'll get a couple of quarts, and we can take them to the park. And she was going, well, why do we have to go get beer every single day at 3:00? Can't we skip this? And I thought to myself, okay, I need to get a new girlfriend. This is what I need to do because this is not going to work out. I didn't realize it, but what I continued to do was I altered my life always around alcohol so that alcohol is always available. I didn't like to go to restaurants that didn't serve alcohol. Everything was just that was forefront. So there were other problems. Like one time, my buddy that I ran around with all the time, I said, "Let's go over to your house and listen to some music and indulge in some outside issues and drink some." And he said, "Yeah. Can we go to your house? My girlfriend said that she would prefer if you didn't come over to the house anymore." Well, that hurt my feelings. It's like, what? What? And, another time I'm like running around and I was at a big event in the park. All my peer group was there. 60 people in the park, a big event. And what I love to drink all the time, when I started very quickly was fortified wine, the wine that's in a bottle, it'll sit in your back pocket. And when you drink it, it's like extremely high alcohol content and it will blow the top of your head off. And that's what I wanted. And so I was down there just with a plus 10 wit and plus 10 charisma. And there was a Great Dane down there. So I jumped on the back of the Great Dane and was riding it around like it was a horse. I was a skinny, little, tiny guy at the time. And woohoo! I was having the time of my life. And I thought very entertaining. And the next day was a Sunday, and I went back down to that same park, and there were a couple of girls, a couple of possible girlfriends walking in front of me, and I was walking up to them, and I was behind them, and I was going to check, start up a conversation, but I overheard what they were talking about. They didn't see me at the time, and one of them said, "Were you here yesterday?" And that bleepity bleep was riding that dog around like it was a horse. What a jerk. And I just kind of shrunk back and slithered off. I had no idea the way that my alcohol, the way that my drinking and my behavior was affecting other people. And it went on. I destroyed a couple of people's lives doing that, just terrible behavior that I always blamed on, well, I was drunk, so, you need to forgive me. At one point, my wife, at this point, I guess I am about 36, and I had a serious relationship with Marilyn, who is my wife today. And she said, Don, I don't know. I don't know if we can continue with this. I believe you're an alcoholic. And I said, that is ridiculous. And you can't say that about me. And she said, well, if that's the case, then quit drinking for 2 weeks. I said, okay. So I quit drinking, and now I'm walking around mad as fire, steam coming out of my ears. And about Wednesday, she says, look at you, which was horrible because now I had to behave and act like a normal person, like I'm perfectly fine. And it was hard because there's all this pressure building up inside of me. And on Saturday rolled around, so I got a 12-pack and was sitting in my room doing some artwork. I had the music cranked up, and she walked in and said, what are you doing? I said, what? We said you weren't going to drink for 2 weeks. No, we didn't. We said I was not going to drink for 1 week. And when I said that, I absolutely believed that we said 1 week. And I knew full well that we said 2 weeks. So both things were true. And that is alcoholism right there, because I can change reality to whatever I need it to be to justify my drinking. Well, she married me, and the next 4 years were bottled hell for me of not being able to, the last years of my drinking were controlled drinking. I was desperate not to be an alcoholic. I did everything I could. I made every rule. I made every limit. There's a place in the big book where it makes a list of all the things we've done. I did that. I switched from beer to wine and developed a very expensive wine drinking habit. And then I went back to my cheap beer because I just couldn't keep it up. I made limits on how much. I said, okay, I remember I had a bottle of I can't say that. That's a name brand. I had a bottle of wine, and I said I'm going to, in the refrigerator, white wine, I was going to drink it down to the very top. It's just about halfway point, for the very top of the label. And I drank it down, and I missed by about an inch, I realized, when I went in and looked at it. And I went, oh, no. So I just finished that off. Then I opened another bottle of wine, and I drank it down. And I mean precisely to the top, the second bottle. And I felt good about that. But trying to control it was a nightmare. Every day I would come home drunk. And what finally happened was in 1994, it was Memorial Day weekend. We had a party, and my son was 6 years old at the time. And I went out and sat on the porch. Now, I had changed the guest list for this party, so it was all alcoholics who were there. All people who, let me not say that. Let me say they were all people who drank like I drank. And the guest list were some other normies, as you mentioned earlier today, Chris. But so I changed the guest list to all people like that because I didn't want my wife paying attention to how much I was drinking. And I went out and sat on the deck, and my son popped up and sat right next to me. And my neighbor said, he watches every move you make. And for some reason, the struggle, the strain, this pain I was in to try to control this thing, the veil lifted, and I saw, I am screwed. There is not going to be an end to this. Now, at this point, I haven't had a DWI. I have my own business, but I am a wreck. I'm an emotional, spiritual wreck, and it's ruining my life. And I knew 2 people in AA, and I decided to go. And I went to my first AA meeting, and they were talking about, they read the long form of of how it works, and I heard, that one is God, may you find him now. And to me, it sounded like, that one is God, 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 may you find him now, now, now. It's just like, it's like, I can't do this. And I didn't go back for 4 days. I finally went back. People recognized me, and the people were talking, and they were telling my story. They were telling my internal thinking. They were telling my secret thinking. And I was going, and it went around the room, and everybody introduced themselves. And that time I said, I'm Don, I'm an alcoholic. And I'd never said that out loud before. I'd always said, I'm Don, I'm tipsy, or, I'm Don, I might have a drinking problem, but not an alcoholic. I admitted it. I love that we say that at every meeting. And the meeting ended with the Lord's Prayer, and I was going, I don't know if I can do this. And I didn't want to pretend that I believed in something I didn't believe in. And we joined hands, and the lady next to me was a young mother, and she had an infant with her and that she was holding in her arms. And so to close the circle, I was going to put my hand on her shoulder because she couldn't release the baby. But when my hand went out, I stuck my finger out at the baby, and that baby grabbed my finger and closed the circle. And I just felt like, I can do this. I can do this. I'm going to try. What I liked about AA, I got a sponsor, and I did everything he said and went through the steps. And I didn't like all the steps. I didn't want to do all. At one point I was going, I don't know. I wanted to argue about it with him. And he said, at one point he was going, well, Don, you don't have to do this. You can go drink. And I was going, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to argue about it. And at that point, I was really like, this is like, you were talking earlier about when you go to a meeting, try to identify rather than identify in rather than identify out. Also, quit arguing. I just had to quit arguing. I had to cancel all my reservations. I had to quit debating it. I quit debating it. And I found in time that I had developed an idea of a higher power that was real for me. I was no longer pretending. I had found that things happened to me that kept me from drinking that I could not explain in any other way. And one of the things was I had this idea of what God was that I didn't, when we say God, I don't mean what you mean. In fact, I tried to explain precisely what I mean, the interconnected web of existence of which we are all a part. You and I, with an invisible connection that can't be explained, but we can feel the love and energy between each other like I feel in the rooms and all. And it's so hard to explain every single time that I said, why don't I just use the word God and let it mean that instead of mean what I used to think it means or what other people think it means. It doesn't matter. This is what I mean, and it's easier. So I did that. And I want to say, like a few years ago, I had some strokes, a series of strokes. It was serious. And I had to have surgery for it. And it was successful. I ended up with hardly any deficit at all. Very, very blessed, lucky, everything. But I had to have this procedure. It was like an endoscopy where they put this. It was a camera they're going to put down my throat to look at my heart, and they put you to sleep for that. But I was in the room right before it happened, and the nurse said, "Okay, now first, before we put you to sleep, I want you to gargle this." And she had this fluid, a little vial of fluid. She said, it's like Novocaine. You want to do it. It's going to numb your throat. But I'm telling you, people hate it. It tastes terrible. I want you to gargle it and then swallow it all. So I said, okay. So I gargled it, swallowed it down. And she said, you hardly made a face at all. So, believe me, I have drank much worse stuff than that. I mean, it did not taste hardly bad at all. It kind of tasted like the gut rot wine that I used to drink in Key West. But then she said, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm an alcoholic and I've been sober for, at that point, 32 years. And she said, oh, that must be hard. And I went to sleep. And I wish I could have said to her, no, it's not hard. It's beautiful. I can't describe how wonderful my life is. I have a way to live. I have a way to deal with the world and all the people in it that I never had that before. I didn't know what to do. I had to drink. And now I have another solution. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Don. Wow. great story. Thank you. And I could definitely identify that first drink or those first drinking episodes, going from the shy kid who isolated to this exuberant person out in the party. I was kind of a party person as well, and I as long as I was drinking. Um, I still have like social anxiety today without drinking, but when I drank, I was the life of the party. And I could also identify with the disease. My dad, I think, had this disease too. I have it. I don't have it because he had it. We have it because we have it, and that's the end. And I also got to the point in my drinking where the fortified wine was a part of my story, and horrible hangovers. I remember that.
The worst.
Yeah. So I have some announcements before we get to Gerald, our second speaker. The seventh tradition of AA states that every AA group should be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. AA members can help by contributing to your group, your local office, your area and district, and to the General Service Board. There's a great pamphlet called Self-Support, Where Money and Spirituality Mix, and you can find it on aa.org. Grapevine does not accept contributions, but of course we do have expenses. The best way to support Grapevine is to subscribe to the magazine, either in print, online, or on the apps. You can subscribe to the magazine in print or online by visiting aagrapevine.org. You can subscribe to the app by searching for AA Grapevine on the App Store on your phone. You can also purchase Grapevine books, greeting cards, and other items at your local AA office. By doing so, you'll be supporting both Grapevine and your local office. You can also visit the Grapevine online store at aagrapevine.org. The AA Grapevine Carry the Message project allows you to help us help others by providing magazine subscriptions to those who are incarcerated, hospitalized, living in remote areas, or stuck at home. Visit aagrapevine.org and click on Carry the Message to learn more. We invite you to listen to our other weekly podcast, the AA Grapevine Half Hour Variety Hour, which is available for free on all podcast platforms and on aagrapevine.org and on YouTube. Check out Our Primary Purpose, the official podcast of the General Service Office of Alcoholics Anonymous. Tune in to hear how AA's message continues to reach those who need it most. For all podcasts, be sure to subscribe on your favorite streaming platform so you can catch all the episodes. And please follow Grapevine on Instagram and YouTube as well. So I just, this year, I joined a new home group. I kind of have two home groups now, but I joined the Outback group in Montrose, New York. And one of the reasons I love that meeting is because it's so friendly, so welcoming. And one of the pillars of the group is Gerald, our next speaker. And he and I share a lot in common. We like the same sports teams, and we like the same kind of music. And we've met up a couple times at venues, not knowing that we'd both be at the same concert, but there we are. So let me introduce you to Gerald, who's right next to me.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gerald, and I am an alcoholic. As Chris said, I am a member of the Outback Group in Montrose, New York. My sobriety date is December 12th, 2012. So people around Westchester County that forget my name, they just simply call me 12, 12, 12. And it's a big story because to me, it didn't make any, it wasn't a big deal for me. It definitely wasn't a big deal because my plan was my sobriety date was supposed to be 1/1/13. But my higher power, which I choose to call God, had other plans. But in my early recovery, people were just they were overjoyed with my sobriety date, and what's the big deal? They say, yo, 12 steps, 12 traditions, 12 concepts, 12 promises. Like, oh, okay. So, but as I got later years, when I begin to work this program, I came to the, I came to the decision that that was God's plan to keep me sober. It was one of his ways to keep me sober. He played to this ego of mine. He said, I'm going to give you a sobriety date that everybody's going to love, and you'd be embarrassed as heck if you ever lost it. so, and it worked. It worked. Don, thank you. Chris, thank you for asking me. And I certainly identify with a lot of Don said, and we're years apart. But like you said, I'm born up in Poughkeepsie, New York, and my mother's only child, and one of my father's 11 by 4 different women. So, when they say dysfunctional family, I kind of say, yeah, I guess you could say that. Because I was a child of an affair. So, and, I was the only child of my father's that didn't carry his last name. And I was raised by my maternal grandparents, and all my other siblings were under his roof. And he was a man that I didn't find out who he was until I was 13 years old. And the reason I found out who my father was because I was chasing the skirts of one of my sisters. So they decided they better tell us what's going on. And like Don said, that was it. I could use that to fueled me for years and years and years. The resentment, like, look what y'all did to me. I'm the outcast, and it was really weird because like I said, I was raised by my maternal grandparents, and on my maternal side, uh, my grandparents had 8 grandchildren, which I was one of, and I carried their last name. And so me and my first cousins on that side, they were my brothers and sisters. They was my unit. And my real stepsisters and brothers, I really didn't have much to do with, even though on 2 different occasions we lived on the very same street. It's really weird, you know, but my grandparents, like I identify with Downey, said they did the best they could with what they had. I really, we were poor. I didn't know it. I mean, there was always food on the table. I always had clothes on my back, and everything I needed was always there. And but I realized later on, because of my real siblings on the other side, I resented them because they were a family unit, and I wanted to be a part of. And to me, they didn't accept me. So therefore, I resented all of them. They resented me because I was on the other side with my grandparents by myself, whereas I didn't have to have hand-me-down clothes. I didn't have to share nothing. I didn't have to fight over food on the table with my brothers and sisters. I was all by myself. So they resented that. So I thought I was more than them, and the whole time I just felt alone and lost. And as I began school, the neighborhood kids, they would always, kids are cruel, but they would always ask me, where's your mother? Where's your father? I like in an early age in like grade school, my mother was around, but not around. But I didn't even know who my father was at that point. So of course the kids got a hold of that, and they would tease me, and it led to a lot of things, a lot of things. Um, so I struggled early on with being different, being a different kind of guy. I was different, and everybody else was regular, and there was something wrong with me. Uh, and as I got a little older and got into, like I said, when I got 13 years old, I was, I believe, the 6th grade. And like I said, I was going out. I thought I was going to the hormones are racing, and I thought I had a little girlfriend, and like I said, we lived on the same street. So one day, coming home from school, I'm carrying her books. I had some, I was a little gentleman. I was carrying her books. We come around the corner and we're walking down the street, and we get up near her house, and outside of her house there stood my grandparents, there stood my mother, there stood some of my uncles and my aunts, and her whole family was out there in front of the house. And we walk up and I'm like, what's going on? What happened? Who died? you know, and that was the point where they just brought us all inside a Miss house, and they sat us down and let me know that Mr. was my father, and all these siblings here, these 8 people, these 9 people, 10 people, were my brothers and sisters. And so that just took me for a loop, and that was really traumatic for me. I didn't know what to do with it at that. I really didn't know what to do with it, and and by then. Um, I had my grandfather was a Met fan. I don't know why, but I, you know, I lived under his roof. So when I was under his roof, I was a Met fan too. Yeah. Until I got well, when I got into my teenage years, I was able to switch to the evil empire. Um, but he would come home, he would have a couple beers, he would watch a Met game during the summer, and he was a construction man, and he worked hard. And but on the weekend he played hard. And he was my male role model, and I just thought that's what you did. You worked, you took care of your family, and you rewarded yourself. And him and his guys, they drank, and they drank hard. And in the end, my grandfather became an alcoholic. But during these formative years, I always say he was a binge drinker. They would drink from Friday night to Sunday afternoon, and then basically through the week, like I said, they would have a couple when they got off of work. But so I thought that's what you did. It didn't work out well for me, but and after that shocking news of who my father and siblings were, it was my first consequence of my drinking at a very early age. I was in seventh grade, and me and my friend, we came up with a bottle of Concord grape wine. Uh, Sweet, ooh, it was sweet, but and we came up with a half gallon of it, and it was me, him, and two girls, and we went to school. I had it in my gym bag because I was on the basketball team, and we started sipping right before class. And at lunchtime, we hit it hard, and we saved enough to have a little bit left after basketball practice. So as I'm going to my locker after day was over to get my gym bag to go to practice, I turned the corner of the hallway, and my my locker was open. The principal was standing there, coach was standing there, and my locker was wide open, and I had the jug. So I like, I'm busted. This is this is it. This is going to be the big one, So what had happened is one of the girls after lunch went back to the next class period, and they vomited in the classroom, and she ratted everybody out. So, but and like one thing that my grandmother was the disciplinarian, and whatever she got her hand on is what I got hit with, and I got hit with a lot of stuff, but on this occasion, I was not worried about getting kicked off the basketball team. I didn't care about getting kicked out of school. All I got scared about was going home and telling my grandmother, because that was going to be a biggie, and it was. But that was my first consequence of my drinking. And around that time, as I moved through high school, I played sports. I played baseball, basketball, and football. Uh, we had our weekend keggers and all that stuff. But what was I noticed was my peers could not drink with me. They always passed out, threw up, and was in the corner, and they just could not drink with me, and then that became my claim to fame. It gave me something to grab onto. I'm the man. I can drink. I'll drink all these cats, and that's what I rolled with it. That was my claim to fame, not knowing that I was on my way to alcoholism, but at that time, I just thought it was a great thing at that age. And like, they always say for me, my drinking came in stages, it was fun, became problematic, and then it was pure misery. And I got through school, and my drinking was, it was above average for somebody that in high school, no doubt about it. But there was no consequences. I didn't get in no trouble. And so I got done with high school, and they was talking about going to Marist College and this, that for football, this, that. And I was like, I'm tired. I don't want to do no school, man. I got other things to do, And so I just went, I went to work, and I was working out of the city of Poughkeepsie Police Department. And we were like, they call it community service officers. And what we would do, we patrol the parks and the projects, and just keeping an eye on stuff to alert the police when something was going down. But the police were our supervisors. The actual police officers were our supervisors, and began to hang out with the police. And I found out that the police, they like to hang out and drink and do other things too. You know, the police officers, the firemen, EMTs, they all like to do what I like to do. So that was it, and that started a thing of whereas I got away with a lot of stuff with no consequences, because that's when I started smashing up my grandfather's cars. I was totaling out his cars, drunk behind the wheel, falling asleep behind the wheel, and no repercussions because they let me go. Only repercussions I had to do was at the end, the last one I smashed up, he made me pay for. He made me buy him a new one. And at that point, he said, "You'll never drive another one of my cars," and I never drove another one of his cars. Uh, but then, that job folded, and I was sitting around the house, supposedly looking for another job, but I was drawing unemployment, so I had a little bit of change. So I would, I decided I was going to become an entrepreneur with some other things, and I became my best customer, of course, and and I ended up owing people some crazy amounts of money, which for one time, and probably that I can remember in my entire life, that my mother came to my rescue. She actually gave me the money to give to this guy, so no harm would come to me. And that was like, well, that was no biggie to me. I'm like, yeah, you owe me that. You ain't been here, you ain't ever been here before. You owe me that. So don't expect no great thank yous from me for that. But that was just the way I was. And so after about a year, my grandfather came home from work one day and sat me at the kitchen table and told me I had to get out, that I couldn't live under his roof anymore, that I just wasn't doing the right thing, and I had to go. And my grandfather, like I said, being my male role model, was the guy that I thought would never ever do this. And that's when I began to think like, dag, am I that bad? My grandfather don't even want me no more. So I'm like, what am I gonna do? I have nowhere to go. And I remember the sign downtown on the storefront that said, Uncle Sam wants you. So I was like, oh, it sounds good to me. So I joined the United States Army in 1978. And I went off, and it was a relief. The pressure was gone. Nobody was looking over my shoulder. Nobody was watching what I do. Nobody was yelling at me for things I did. I felt freedom. And there were people in the Army that drank like I drank. And I had a ball. I was in shape. I made rank. I did well as a soldier, so things were going great. I I love beer. I loved beer, and the first place they sent me was Germany. I was like, oh my goodness! I re I re-upped in Germany to stay another 3 years over there. So I spent a lot of, and I ended up going back as a civilian with my wife after I got married in the service. So I was well on my way. In other words, I was well on my way, and things were happening, but no consequences. So everything was great. So finally, while I was in the military, I ended up getting married. Uh, I got married in Denmark and Copenhagen, actually. And to this day, I always say that's what the marriage license says. I don't remember much of it, but I ended up married with a 10-year-old stepson. Pretty soon, a daughter on the way. And the woman I married, she was 10 years older than me, had been married before, and she she decided she wanted to fix me rather than me be the guy that I said, I'm the same guy you married. You married me as I was. But on and on and on. So I mean, I drank and drug for over 45 years. And I never got that thing that it says in the big book, that thing about that I never got to that. I never understood that I could not drink safely, and the idea of it had to be smashed. I just couldn't get it because everybody around me could do it. Why couldn't I? And I tried over and over and over and over. And I stopped counting detoxes and rehabs at 22. And but finally, I mean, like I said, my daughter, when I left, when my wife put me out, my daughter was 2 years old. The next time I seen her, she was 32, and I was 2 years sober. And that's the only reason I seen her, because of this program. I I came in this time, and I came to the VA in Montrose, and where I had been before, and I had decided I had enough, and that was the key. I didn't understand it. That was the key, that I was done. I didn't want any more, and I needed help, and I surrendered, which was the key. And I surrendered, and I decided that every time I came out of rehab, I went right back home. Went right back home. This time they had more programs, and I decided to stay. I stayed at the VA for 3 years. It was supposed to be a 2 year. I stayed for 3 years. I was scared to death to come out without the right tools. And this program, I had the Outback that was right down the street 7 days a week. And I remember my first sponsor telling me about because now during all these rehabs, of course, I read the big book. So when my sponsor said 90 and 90, what are you talking about, 90 and 90? There's nothing in the big book that says anything about 90-90. I didn't see anything in there that said anything about that. He says either you do it or I'm gone. So I ended up doing it, and I did more than that. And finally, after 3 years, I came out of the VA. They got me an apartment in Peekskill. Uh, I, there was they got me furniture. They got me everything I needed to begin my life again. And I'm a big guy on prayer. My higher power is God. I choose to call God. Um, my life now is unbelievable, unbelievable. Even though I always say life keeps showing up, but God does too. So there's nothing that's thrown at me that I don't believe I can get through, because I have. And I had prostate cancer. I got through. I'm dealing with type 2 diabetes now. I'm getting through. All kinds of things are going on, but I get through on a daily basis because of this program and the power of my God. And in closing, I always like to say that I may not be the man I want to be yet, and I may not be the man that God wants me to be yet. But by the grace of God and this fellowship, Alcoholics Anonymous, I will never be the man I used to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gerald. Wow, great story. I could identify with a lot. I mean, I was kind of lucky. I do remember I had both my parents in the house. Sometimes that was problematic because they used to fight like crazy. But I was a surprise when I came along, and there was some issues around that. But anyway, I could also I tried to be a sports guy. I actually in the playground I was good. I was a great baseball player. I was a good football player. I would try out for teams, and my personality was such that if I got criticized or disciplined by a coach, I was gone. So I never could continue to do it. Plus, it interfered with my after school drinking, which was unacceptable to me. And like you, I was the big drinker, in the class, and the jocks actually looked up to me for my drinking capacity. And but that was short lived. That was like a couple of years, and then all of a sudden I was passing out. But and the thing you reminded me of, and I forgot about this all. I was on this. I don't know how I got on it exactly, but there was some troubles in Ossining where I grew up, some racial issues and fighting and stuff like that, and they started this. The Ossining police started this community relations council, and I was one of the teenagers that was on it. And that got me out of some drinking trouble, because I knew the cops. But anyway, thank you, Don, and thank you, Gerald, so much. And everybody that's on here, please let your friends know about our meeting and our podcast. This is an open meeting, so it is also ideal for friends who want to learn more about Alcoholics Anonymous. Keep this in mind if you're doing cooperation with the professional community or public relations information work. Don, I want to ask you to come back and just close us out in the manner of your choice.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Gerald. Can we have a moment of silence for the still suffering alcoholic, followed by the serenity prayer? God,
God,
grant us the serenity to accept the things we
cannot
cannot change.
courage to change the things that I can,
And the wisdom
to know the difference.
That's the biggie. Know the difference.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care, Don.
Take care.